Neglected elegance isn't a rarity in East Germany. On our second day of our big DDR road trip, we tried to find one of the best, most ornate gems. We started with a big majestic castle, where you could really sense the fallen, wealthy atmosphere. After that, we went to a big sanatorium, with a beautiful theater in the middle. Join us on our second day in the fallen DDR. During last summer, we did our first big road trip. This time we traveled to Eastern Germany to discover the many remains of the former DDR. During this 5-day road trip, we came across the most epic locations. From secret Soviet bases to beautiful ornate castles. We will start today's episode with the Grand Castle. The castle's property was big and mostly walled, so we had a feeling that it wasn't going to be easy. We first tried the front gate, where we noticed quite a big gap. A couple of seconds later, we were on the property. We could already see some great details of the castle. So let's proceed into the large building. Behind some plants in the corner, we found the final entrance into the historic castle. Inside we finally witnessed the great details. This right here is the central grand hall. It may look pretty rough, but through the rubble you can still see the former beauty. It somewhat reminded me of some Italian places. But well, let's finally start exploring. We will start with the main floor. After that, we will work our way up. The first rooms downstairs seem to be rather stripped, unfortunately. Still, there were a couple of rooms which were pretty cool. Take, for example, this room, which has some beautiful woodwork. You really began to wonder how it must have been like to live here. At the end of the big central hallway was a rather pleasing surprise. And that was the big grand staircase, which was extremely pretty. With the swooping lines and the great details, this was truly a stunning piece of architecture. It straight goes into the list of my favorite abandoned staircases. But okay, we've reached the next floor. And with that, we are once again in a big hallway. In the hallway there were multiple rooms. Most of them were in a truly bad condition. But even in this ramshackle condition, details were still visible. Like you could already have guessed, this castle has a ton of history. It was in fact firstly mentioned all the way back in 1350. so pretty much in the middle of medieval times. In that period, multiple wars were fought around this castle. But the castle always stayed within the family though. Around 1600, the castle was hit with a plague and a fire, which took a hit on the financial situation. A couple of years later, it was sold to a businessman who decided to completely rebuild the medieval castle into the building we are in right now. We will continue the history lesson later. First, let's enjoy some more of the beautiful castle. When walking through the big hall, my eye fell on this beautiful sight. It was a lonely, bright green plant, growing in some rubble. It is truly direct proof that life will always continue, even when humans have left. I think it's time though to check out the real big highlight of this castle. And that is the large central grand ballroom. And wow, what a great room. The details in this room were truly amazing. Mixed with the natural decay made it even more special. And life also once again is inhabiting this once grand ballroom. Located next to the fireplace, it somewhat resembled a Christmas tree. The beauty of this castle unfortunately also has a dark page. This dark page can be traced back to the period of Nazi Germany. In the 30s, one of Hitler's favorite writers was living in this castle. He published many anti-Semitic books in this period. In the collapse of Nazi Germany, he showed how loyal he was by signing the so-called Pledge of Loyal Allegiance. This meant he would commit suicide if Hitler would die. A couple of days later, he hanged himself, right here in this ballroom. Quite an impressive history, don't you think? In fact, this bizarre story still haunts the future of the property. In 2016, the castle was listed on an auction site. It was then sold to a neo-Nazi group, which had a plan to turn this place into what looks like a concentration camp. Fortunately, the owner enlisted the castle to prevent this rather unpleasant future. What it meant though, was that the castle would continue to fall in disrepair. Let's move away though from this hateful past and explore the last remaining parts of the castle. We had one last floor to explore. We went to this floor with different stairs than the grand one. Weirdly enough though, this staircase was covered with leather. I have no clue why they even did this, but if you have a clue, feel free to put it in the comments below. When upstairs, we once again witnessed a beautiful hallway. This one had a pretty much perfect amount of peeling paint. With this find, we also pretty much covered the highlights of this castle. What the future will hold for this castle is pretty unknown, but hopefully it will be saved soon. Our next location was one to finish off our second day of exploring in Eastern Germany. We kind of missed the DDR architecture, so we decided to visit a 50s sanatorium. The sanatorium was located in a big spa town. So we had to enter it as quickly as possible. Alright, we were finally in. We started in the big cellar of this building. Right here, the so-called healing water was transported to every room. We didn't come to this place for the pipe network though. So let's try to find a staircase. Finally, we came across a staircase, so we could finally explore the real cool highlights. The building is constructed in a typical sanatorium style. So with a central lobby in the middle and 2 wings going left and right. We will start in one wing and work our way to the central part. All the way in the back, the first highlight was located. And that was this small open space with a broken roof. The broken roof showcased the true beauty of this part though. In the past this was called the Winter Garden, which literally translated to English is called the Winter Garden. The purpose was to hold small events, pretty much. Let's head into the history though. This area is widely known for the extraction of uranium. Due that uranium is highly radioactive though, this job was pretty unhealthy. To make up for these health risks, the miners were sent to this resort to get a needed treatment. Let's continue further into the building though. Unfortunately, all of the other rooms were empty. So we skipped those and went straight to the grand entrance. The entrance hall was truly beautiful and had this beautiful typical communist mural. Unfortunately, we were disturbed by some unexpected guests.
Oh, kut. Persoon, wat doe je? Loop daar letterlijk een persoon, een wit. Nee, de kelder in.
We first thought it was the security, which noticed our lights. But then we heard a little kid talking. Which meant it wasn't security. And just a family, checking out the mysterious looking building in the vacation park. After some waiting they left, and we were finally free to explore the last remaining part. And this part truly didn't disappoint. It was in fact a truly epic looking cinema. It was very dark in here, so we have to show a picture. Nevertheless, it was really cool to witness such a decaying beauty. You may wonder right now when the last movie was held here. And in fact it wasn't due to the fall of the Iron Curtain this time. It was just 10 years later when this building closed for good. Which means it has been abandoned for about 20 years right now. But okay, it's time to look backstage. We have heard that the backstage is actually pretty intact. After a couple of stairs, we finally came across what we were looking for. This is the room where actors were prepared. The atmosphere truly showed you a completely different time. Okay, it's time to head further down to the backstage. Our final highlight was the stunning projector room. The projectors were real Soviet design, so we were quite excited for that room. Damn, we were too late unfortunately. The removal was actually done really recently, as that this old building has been bought just a couple of weeks before our visit. The new owner was actually still busy with removing all of the interior. Right now, most of the old sanatorium is empty, which is quite positive actually. With this positive note, we will also end our second day of a road trip in the former DDR. Next time on Forgottenbuildings, we will explore something a bit different, and that is the world of heavy machinery. From dozens of classic rusting locomotives to one of the biggest moving machines in the world. Join us next week as we discover the forgotten behemoths of the former DDR.